Hey guys, Mug here, showing you the basics of Photoshop. And in today's lesson, we're just going to look at how to open up a document in Photoshop CC and basic navigation in our opening window to determine our document purpose and our document size. The subsequent videos that you can pull up, we're going to talk a little bit more about navigating the screen, user interface, some preferences, and also just how to get around in Photoshop. So for this first lesson here, we're just going to get right to it. Your screen may look slightly different than mine depending if you are using an Apple product or if you're using a PC. Obviously, if you are using a PC, you're not going to have this Apple here in the top left corner. But other than that, the rest of the menu items are going to look pretty identical. And once you're in Photoshop, it will be the same, other than a few shortcuts that we use. And on an Apple, we use the Command key or the Apple key, and on a PC, you would use Control. As we move forward and look at some of those lessons here to come, I will try to remember to use both of those keys and make sure that I'm clear as to which ones to use. So anyway, let's move forward here, let you guys see exactly what's here in Photoshop, how we can open a document, get rolling. At the top of your screen, you're going to see that we have a menu bar, and we have File, Edit, Image, Layer, Type, Select, Filter, 3D View, Window, and Help here at the top. To open up a new document, what we're going to do is just go right up here to where it says File, and we're going to click on New. It's going to open up our new document window, and we're just going to spend some time, a minute or two here, just going through this window so you can understand exactly what's going on when we open up a new document and how we can edit some of those options here. So the first thing that I always do, and I have all my students do, anytime they open up a new document, I can't stand having a document named Untitled, so we're going to go ahead and give it a title here. And we can call it Introduction to Photoshop. Below the name for your document, you have document type. And the document type, this is going to tell Photoshop what our purpose is. Why are we making this document? What's our end goal here? Why are we making this particular image? And if we click on default Photoshop size, we can look at what those actual numbers are. So the default size is going to be a width of 7 inches. Now, you can edit these numbers to be whatever you want them. So if you wanted to make a document that was 10 inches wide instead of 7, you can type that in there. But you'll see that your document type will actually change to custom. And that's because we're no longer in the default size, which is just fine. You can make it any size you want for whatever purpose you have. The most important thing here is that we look at and make sure that our units are correct. So on the right-hand side of this part of the window, it says inches. Now, most people who are editing in Photoshop, at least here in the States, are going to be using inches. But if you're designing something for purposes of web use or video, you're usually going to choose pixels as your units. That's because when something is displayed on a screen, it's using pixels. And we want to make sure that we understand how many pixels are going to be on that screen or on that image. I can go ahead and type in here now. I want to make sure that it's large enough. 10 pixels will not be wide enough. There are 72 pixels per inch on a screen. Therefore, if I only made it 10 pixels wide, I would only have about 1/7 of an inch. So if we make it 1,000 pixels, we can actually see what that would equal in inches. If you just go back up here and change our units to inches, you'll see a change. That's actually 3.33 inches, 1,000 pixels. When we're talking about 300 pixels per inch in the actual document. So on display on the screen, we're only going to be able to get about 72. However, this particular document is going to be set up for printing. Now, if we print something out, if you print out a photo at your local drugstore or something like that, then 300 pixels per inch is an adequate resolution. You would definitely not want to design something that's going to be printed, especially something smaller. Any small print you would never want to do at 72 pixels per inch because it just would not give you the type of detail that you'd be looking for. The quality would not be there. Now on a screen, 72 pixels per inch is just fine. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go right back up to the top here and take this back to my default Photoshop size for today. And you'll see that it resets it automatically back to 7 inches by 5 inches. The resolution is 300 pixels per inch. And just below that we have a color mode. Now the color mode means which set of colors are we going to use to make this particular document. If you click on this drop down arrow, you're going to see our options here. In bitmap and grayscale, these are very basic color modes. They're limited to the amount of colors that are used in Photoshop. It's usually 256. However, in RGB color mode, you have 255 each for red, green, and blue. And if you multiply those together, 255 times 255 times 255, we end up with a lot of options and millions of colors. And so designing in grayscale and bitmap may actually be appropriate for some applications. For most of what we're going to be doing in Photoshop and what most people use Photoshop for is going to be in RGB color mode and using those millions of colors. If you're going to be designing something for print and you know already that you're going to be using cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, that's what CMYK stands for, that's the color mode you would want to use in that specific situation. Lab color, this is another way of using black and white. It's just a more sophisticated way of using a black and white color mode. It's what I use sometimes when I'm editing black and white photos, or I'm taking a color photo and I'm making it a black and white photo. It gives me way more control over all the values that are in that black and white photo. So for most of what we're going to be doing for this course and as we move forward in most of these lessons that you're going to see, RGB color is kind of the industry standard for what we're going to be doing here. Now as we move forward and look at different gaming type designs, we're going to be changing our document size and also some of our units that we're measuring with. They're not going to be in inches, they're going to be in pixels. Right below that, right below the color mode, we have background contents. The default here is white. And as we move forward, you're going to see that white does not equal blank. And that's something, if Photoshop's something new for you, then you're gonna may have a hard time. But white in Photoshop actually means white pixels, which means it's not blank. And if you're used to painting and you see a blank canvas, or at least a canvas that's been gessoed, then it's going to be white. And for most people, that's blank. In Photoshop here, white actually means like it's painted with white. And there is no transparency in the back. And we're going to talk about different document types, different file types, so that you can understand kind of this white versus transparent idea. We also have a background color, and that's going to be dictated by the colors that are over here. If you look at the left-hand side of the screen, these are some of our tools here in Photoshop, and at the bottom we can dictate the color that's going to be used for our documents right here. And these are called foreground and background colors. We'll talk more about that later. But it's telling us that it'll set the background color. Whatever we have chosen here on the left, it's going to make the background for our document. Almost every single time I go to Photoshop, I start with a transparent background. I like to know that it's clean and there are no pixels there. That way there's no mistaking that I have a clean canvas and not white pixels. So for what we do here, we're going to start transparent, just so we can make sure we understand what's going on there. And we're going to click on OK. And that's going to open up our document like this. We have, as you'll see here, we have a checkerboard pattern here, and this is called our canvas, just to make sure you understand what's going on. This is called our canvas. Our canvas sits on our entire workspace. So if we're going to use proper vocabulary here, so our workspace is all the area that's around here. It includes all these menus on the far right-hand side. It includes our tools on our toolbox here. It also includes the menu at the top and the color of the background. That's our user interface. You can actually change the color of that here. And we're going to do a video on preferences as well. But anyway, so our first document, we have our document, which was the 5 by 7 inches at 300 resolution. And you'll see that we have a checkerboard pattern. That's going to wrap up this video today for setting up a document. Please check out the next video, and that's going to be on how to navigate, how to look at some of the first tools, how to brush, and how to start putting color on this canvas. So we'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.